Good morning, Ali. Welcome to my show, One for the Road. It's so lovely to have you here, and you kindly sent me your book this week. And as I said previously, I started to look through it, and I realised that actually I need to do it in one sitting because it captivated me right from the beginning. It's such a brilliant story, and that's why I wanted to get you on today. So thank you so much for joining me.
That is a lovely thing to say, and thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. But I've had that feedback from a lot of people. It's a bit of a page turner, and one
Yeah,
person messaged me and said I took the day off work because I couldn't go to
yeah.
work without having
It's
finished it. I'm like,
It's
okay,
really brilliant, actually. And I read a review earlier and it says, There is no wall, which is the title of your book, is ultra runner Allie Bailey's brutally honest and sometimes shocking account of alcoholism, depression, and severe mental breakdowns that almost cost her life. And that hooked me in straight away because that's how I look at my addiction as well. It never started off in a litre of vodka a night. It started off with a can of Castle Maine outside the off license, but it really grips you, doesn't it? So I'm really looking
yeah.
forward to getting into that. But as we all know in this podcast, we like to start from the beginning. So it'd be great if you could tell us about your childhood and what it's like for you growing up.
So I'm 42, so I was a child of the 80s, um,
Wonderful.
and I'm one of five, and at that point I was the middle child, but my dad's first child. So I've got two older brothers and sisters, and they're a lot older, like 10 years older, and then me and my two little brothers. Um, and I had quite a lovely childhood, very idyllic. Like, there was no money in the house, but I was the apple of my dad's eye, and it was all very lovely. There was lots of like holidays and things, but there was no money. And because it was the 80s, I think, um, there was alcohol everywhere. So like everything we did was punctuated by alcohol. Like the pub was basically our second home, but it wasn't a bad thing. There was no like abuse or like anger. It was just like, oh, end of the day, let's have a beer. And my dad made homebrew, and it was always in the airing cupboard, and we were always at the pub. And when we went on holiday, we were at the pub every night. And like I say, nothing in there until I got to sort of the age of 11, where I was like, but it was always there. Booze was always there. And it was just like, that's normal, absolutely 100% normal. And we would go to a lot of parties. I don't know, do you remember this in the 80s as an 80s thing? It was
Yeah.
just like a social thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't even think drink driving became a thing till the 90s, to be quite honest with you. I remember a campaign in the 90s about drink driving, but before then, pretty sure that we did a bit of drink driving. Anywho, we when I was 11, I passed the 11 plus, which is like this standardization exam we have in the UK that basically says whether or not your 11-year-old is clever, which I'm not
Yeah.
really sure you can do with an exam. But turns out I was clever, and they sent me to a grammar school, and I absolutely hated it, like beyond hated it. I went to this girls' grammar school, like 45-minute bus ride away from like the other school that everybody else went to. I was bullied. We had no money. All my clothes were secondhand. They didn't fit me. Everybody else had come from private school. They'd all like been like paid to get in there. It was just girls only, and I was so used to just getting on with my brothers, getting dirty in the mud, like never brushing my hair. And then suddenly there's all these girls like wearing these shoes, and I'm like, they're doing sport and
Yeah.
talking about what their weight, and I was like, what? I just wanted to cuddle ponies and stroke dogs and get dirty, and so I was really badly bullied, and I never really told anyone. I saw because I didn't want to let my dad down. Because on my first parents' evening, my dad turned up, and this to me is the turning point of everything. So I was 11. My mum didn't turn up to me, so my dad did. And on the way out of that parents' evening, he said to me, your reading age is below, your maths age is below, and your science age is below. I was the youngest in the year. I'm an August baby, and I'd come from a normal school. He's like, you need to work harder. And that was it. And I just remember that like a bullet to my heart. Like I've let my dad down for the first time. He wasn't proud of me anymore.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous. And I'm pretty sure that my dad will probably remember it as, him being like, just, I'll just give her a little Jimmy along and like
Yeah.
encouraging me. But for me, he ripped my heart out.
Yeah.
And from that minute on, I was like, I need to work better and harder to make him more proud of me. But he had other stuff going on. And when I was when on my 16th birthday, he just left, and uh he left and moved in with someone else. And he explicitly told me he wasn't going to do that because I kind of had an inkling something was going on. So he lied to me, he abandoned me, and that was the end of that. And I'd had these thoughts about not being good enough from the age of 11, and they were building up, and I felt uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable in my skin. I felt uncomfortable at that school. I felt like I didn't fit in. And the whole time, you know, from the age of 12, 13, 14, we were allowed to have a little beer at home at a party. And whenever I had the little beer, it was like, oh, actually, I don't feel so bad now. I actually feel all right. Like beer is quite good fun, isn't it? Like just a
Yeah.
little stubby with like 2% alcohol. So from the age of 16, when my dad went, there was no one there for me to like behave for. Like I love my mum and everything, but she was in a right state. So off we fucking go. And I started going to nightclubs. I started seeking approval from men, which was basically me shagging anything that moved. I was like, I thought I was some sort of rock and roll renegade, but I wasn't a rock and roll renegade. I was just a really confused teenager that spent their weekends getting absolutely shit-faced because I couldn't bear these thoughts of not fitting in and not being good enough. And where's my dad gone? And why doesn't he love us? And you know, that reaction that you have when you're that age, where your prefrontal cortex is still a big blob of mush. So you don't have the ability to like understand other people's decision making, that you don't have any power over that. And it's not about you and all that stuff. You don't get that when you're 16, do you? And I was too angry to talk to him. So I just made up this story and like followed it. Like he's abandoned me. He doesn't love me. Like I'm worthless. And that I'm worthless thing, that was the thing that like hung over me probably for the next 24 years. That was the overarching thing. So yeah.
Also probably how you didn't fit in with the news grammar school, because I remember the 11 plus as well, and there might be people where you're going, what's that? You know,
oh God,
but it was
plus.
that all or nothing thing, wasn't it? Like if you don't pass 11 plus, you go to the crappy school around the corner. But where I lived, there was Wallington Boys School. And
it already sounds like something Panorama would investigate.
Yeah,
to be honest,
it does. You know, and my cousin was like really intellectual, and he went to Wallington Grammar, and I went to a school called Gainsford, which was just the end of the world there. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrible school. But I can really identify that. And did your dad have a conversation with you when he left, or did he just up sticks and go?
He apparently did. So this part I found quite hard to write in the book because I don't really have a relationship with dad anymore.
Right.
And because I've seen him like fucking count the amount of times I've seen him since I was 16 with 2 hands.
Yeah.
Like I just am like, nah, I'm all right, thanks. Because when I have tried to have conversations with him since, but it's always turned into arguments and always turned into shouting. I can't deal with people shouting at me. It's because my dad used to shout at us when we were little. It was an 80s way of parenting. It was, you're going to get slapped. You're going to get your bum smacked. You're going to get shouted at. My dad's 6 foot. He looks like Oliver Reed. So there's no way that you're going to mess with him. So he did, when he came to leave, when he came to take his stuff, my mum sent him upstairs apparently to talk to me and tell me what he'd done. And I don't remember it at all. And she was like, he sat on the edge of your bed. He was crying. You didn't do it to really say anything. She was like, you weren't even upset. You were just like not there. And I was like,
freeze mode, wasn't you?
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm like, I sort of flashly remember it.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember it. I remember him being there, but I don't remember the conversation. I don't think it was a conversation. I think he just told me.
Yeah.
And put on some pretty good theatrics about it. But it's it's difficult, but it's one of those things. I'm 42 now, and I've done a lot of work on myself, and I've done a lot of work on, you know, the people. My brother always says to me, review before consumption, social media, people, and what you put in your body. And I'm like, really? Is it worth it for me to go through this again, trying to get into this, having a relationship with someone that, to be quite honest with you, I haven't had a relationship with, and I don't need to have a relationship with. It's all good as far as I'm concerned. He's got a copy of the book, but since I've sent him the book, he hasn't messaged me, so I'm imagining he's not that thrilled.
I mean, I've written a book as well, and there were some parts in there that I was like really nervous about, you know, and it was really difficult for me as well. I mean, I even went to the house. My mum left when I was 14, but she didn't have a conversation. She left me a letter, and I even put a note for the door of the house that I grew up in to see if I could sit in the house, have a cup of tea. I said, I'll bring in some cake, and because I wanted to go back there to really like get in touch with the emotions from that house.
Yeah.
I never heard. I was gutted because it's round the corner from where my dad lives now. And I thought, do you know what? I want to see my old room because
Yeah.
that's where I used to sit in night after night. And it really dug up lots of hidden emotions that I didn't even know what they were there. You
Yeah,
know,
and I think and it's so hard, right? Because you're writing this stuff down and you're like, I'm not doing this as a revenge piece. And I'm not doing
yeah,
this to like, you know, like desecrate the memory of someone. But it's so important to be absolutely crystal clear, honest, because it helps other people. And
yeah,
like that's what I found with this book is there's bits of this book that I'm like, oh man, I really don't want everybody to know about that awful thing I did. But then people have actually messaged me and gone, I'm sitting here on holiday reading this in floods of tears because that happened to me and
yeah.
no one else has ever written about it. And I thought it was only me. So I carried the shame for like my whole life. And now I know it's not just me. And I'm like, hey man, there's like thousands of people that have done that. Like,
No, it's
just
true.
don't talk
And
about it.
we're pretty similar. Like you are what you say. Do you know what I mean? What you see is what you get, and I'm the same. And there's some
Mm.
things I've shared, and I just want it out there because I know I'm confident people will relate to it, and the same. They message me and say, "I can't believe that you've written that because that mirrors my life exactly." You know. So,
Mm-hmm.
moving on into your teens and that you was a rebel. How did that
I thought I
manifest?
was Dave.
Oh,
I was such a shit rebel
how
because I was
was
like,
you?
well, I want to smoke cigarettes and really irritate my dad, but I do want good A levels. And
Yeah,
because I was bullied so bad at school, I spent all my time in the library. So I was like, I might as well get clever. If my dad's put me in it to get
yeah,
clever, I might as
yeah.
well get clever. And I had this dream from the age of 14. There's this magazine called Smash Hits, or
Oh yeah, I
Smash
remember
Hits,
that.
big, just 17, Vox, Select, NME. I used to read all the magazines, like going to the post office to pick up the child allowance because that's what I had to do. That was my favorite day because I could get my magazines. And my magazines are a window to the world. And magazines are what we had before the internet, kids. So I was like, I saw in just 17 that there was this girl, and her job was she was the press officer for East 17, the
Wow.
rubbish Walthamstow based boy band. And I was like, she works at the record company. My eyes went massive. I was like, oh, I'm going to go and work at the record company because I loved music. I loved it.
Yeah.
It's something my dad had instilled in me. And everyone was like, you're never going to work at a record company. And I was like, I am. And they were like, no, you're not. And I remember my careers advisor being like, you're more suited to being a nurse. And I'm like, I fucking hate people. So that's not for me. Or a carpenter. And I'm like, because I've done quite well in like making things in technology. I'd
Yeah.
made like a MDF version of the school gym or something.
Oh,
Anyway, I was
brilliant.
like, yeah, brilliant. I was like, no, I'm going to work for a record label. And they were like, no. I've still got all my reports where they're like, Ali has fantasy about working at a record label.
Oh God.
But then also in my PE report, it says Alice shows the promise of becoming quite a good runner if she just applies herself. And that still goes now, to be honest. Anyway, I went to university and I went to the University in London. So I lived in Bournemouth and I could have done the same course in Bournemouth, but I applied to go to Goldsmiths in London because I wanted to run away from the situation. My mum was in bits. My brothers were becoming teenagers. They hated me. My dad fucked off and I was like, I'm out. So I
Yeah.
like responsibly ran away from home to a university in Southeast London in the early 2000s. And then you're just cut free, aren't you? And you've been
Yeah.
given some money and you're like, I can do whatever I want now. I can
Yeah.
day drink, I can go to the student union. And I worked really hard. I worked hard on my degree. I did media communications, but I didn't work. It wasn't that hard. It's pretty easy. Media communications is a Mickey Mouse degree. I wrote my dissertation on David Bowie. That's not hard. And I worked in our price, and I worked probably in the record shop more than I was at college, at uni, because I liked it, because you could smoke behind the counter and swear and play really loud music. And yeah, and I came out of uni with like a 2-1. And then 7 years after coming out of uni, 7 years after applying, I got this job at the record company. But while I was at uni, I was an absolute train wreck. But it was okay because everybody was a train wreck. I was in New Cross in the early noughties. Everybody was doing it. And it just became absolutely normal. But the problem was, Dave, that everybody thought I was the person they went for a drink with, but I went for a drink with everybody. So
Yeah.
like people thought I was like social and like a little bit rock and roll and like a little bit cool, but I was just looking for people to go and like support my little drinking career. I'd hop from pub to pub and group to group, like, and
Mm.
everyone would think that that's when I'd gone out, but I hadn't. I'd been out for like hours, and I was really good at holding it together. Like, I wasn't like a laying in the gutter crying drunk. I was a fully functioning. I can probably drink 9 pints of beer and still stand up and have a conversation drunk, which is quite impressive. I think that's where my endurance came from. But it became like normal. Like, that was it. Like, and then throughout my whole adult life, like, I just used it because it was the only thing I had that made me not feel normal, but feel nothing. Felt like I had like a suit of armor on when I was drinking, and nothing could get to me. No feelings could get to me, but then nothing can get in, and that means that nothing can get out. So it's stuck in you. And it was as much as, like, you know, we look back and we're like, oh my God, that was awful. There was like 20% of it was great. Like, there was some stuff that happened that was hilarious, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't brilliant. And I don't know. I think it's completely different for kids nowadays at uni. I think there's other things that they do rather than doing that. But flipping heck, man, the lost
I mean,
years.
there's nearly 20 years between us, right? But the way you describe it is almost identical to me, because I used to pick up beer buddies, really. I didn't care who it was. I remember going to a pub on a Sunday. I literally had nothing to do. And I don't know what, I think my pub was being refurbed. And the one up the road, which was always the clicky one, because there were 3 little pubs and we was all really clicky about, well, we ain't going to that one, you know. And I ended up going in it just to talk to people, but to justify my drinking, because back then I wasn't really drinking indoors. And it's like, I hate this bloke, yet I'm being really nice and pally to him just to support my drinking. Do you know what I mean? It was so two-faced, but it's what I did. And the other thing I was going to say to you, our price. I haven't heard of our price for donkey's years, because it was always HM3. But our price was a big deal.
Our
then,
price was brilliant.
Yeah.
Bring back our price.
It was
like,
fantastic.
We loved our price. Yeah, it was great. I worked there for long. I worked there from the age of 16. I worked at the one in Bournemouth, then the one in Lewisham. That was an experience. And then I ended up managing one, actually, after I left university, because I thought that the record companies would come calling. Turns out they don't. And so I managed in our price for quite some time. It was a highlight, Dave, of my career. And there was a pub, actually, at Surrey Quays, where I would take 2 hours off during the day, go sit in the pub, and it was Wetherspoons, so I could have pints for 99p.
And
Perfect.
not be judged in there, not care, because everyone was doing the same.
But then people didn't judge me because I wasn't an alcoholic, because I was like, I'd go in for 2 pints, then move on to the next pub for 2 pints, then move on to the next pub for 2 pints. And I would go to the off license to buy 1 bottle of wine, then go to the next off license to buy 1 bottle of wine, then the next one. So all the off licenses thought I came in for a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
But I went to all the off licenses for bottles of wine. It was like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was like, that thing of sitting with people you don't like and you don't agree with and you have nothing in common with, and putting up with their bullshit because you're like, well, it's better to drink with them than it is to drink on my own.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrendous. But when I eventually started working in music, I ended up in a situation where I was put in a flat by myself. I was living by myself. At the age of 27, I started to live on my own for the first time ever. I'd always lived with boyfriends or my family. And when that happens to you and you suddenly get into this flat and you're like, oh, I've never lived on my own. That was where it got super bad, because I could not be alone at all. And I was living in Soho, like in Marylebone, just behind Oxford Street. So it's just like parallel to Soho, which when you're a 27-year-old music industry employed, anxious addict, is literally the worst place that you can live, because you've got access to all night.
Yeah.
Like the darkness of Soho. Yeah. I know every fucking bar in Soho. I know every single little door. I know every single little lock. I know every password. I know every person. I know every dirty person, every clean person, every tattooist, every crack dealer, because I would go out and be like, I need to be with people. So I would just go to fucking Trisha's and sit there with all these absolutely fucked people drinking wine. Yeah. Like, I just couldn't be on my own.
Have you worked out why? Was that because it started to bring up your thoughts and feelings, or I
so had this drilled in, you're not good enough, and I was searching for this happiness. So we all know that happiness doesn't exist now, where people in the know, we know that this clawing at happiness is futile, because humans aren't made to be happy. We're made to have millions of emotions, and our default is not happiness. Our default's actually fear, because if we weren't scared of everything, we wouldn't be as successful as we are. But we're like, no, if you're not happy, you're defective. And it's like, if you've got depression, you've got an illness, so you're not well. So there's something wrong with you. I was depressed. I knew I was depressed because I was diagnosed at university when I first tried to top myself. I was anxious. I was hungry all the time because I was working in music. I felt this pressure to be tiny. I never had an eating disorder, but I'd rather drink the calories than eat them. I was working in this industry that was so awful. Like any media industry will tell you that you're lucky to be there. And that's the threat they use for you, because they're not paying you very much and bad stuff is happening. Me Too type stuff, bullying, lots of aggression. It's the sort of place where things happen in meetings that would never happen in a meeting anywhere else, but you're lucky to be here. So it's all right for your boss to ball you out, shout at you and call you a bitch or whatever he's calling you, because you're lucky to be there. 1 million people want your job, put up with it. You're lucky to be here. Your salary is 17 grand a year and you live in central London. You're lucky to be here. Lucky, lucky, lucky. Not we're lucky to have you. Not you're doing a great job. Not we're so grateful that you're here working 16-hour days. And that might include going to a gig and going to an after show, which sounds great, but it's not great when you have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to a photo shoot and be complimented for 16 hours. It's not great. That's hard work.
Yeah.
And so I was in this state where I was being told I felt like I was going to get found out at work. I was on my own. I had no one to talk to. I didn't want to tell people I was depressed because I didn't want to lose my job. My job had seeped into my skin and made me feel like it was the core of my being was to work at this record company. I judged my success on how real my leather jacket was and how many pop stars I knew and how many famous people I could ring and how many BlackBerry messages I got. And everything was just fucking bleak. And it was, and I was in this vicious circle, the drink, hungover, anxious, drink, hungover, anxious. And that was sort of swirling around the outside. And then inside my head was this fear that of I don't know what, that I was going to get found out. I don't know what it was.
God, so much you're saying to me is mirroring me, honestly.
It's horrible. It's so horrible. And even talking about it, it's like, do you ever think about it and think, I must be making that up? Because I can't imagine feeling like that now. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine how scared I must have been. I can remember it. Someone said to me something about my dog, and they said to me, your dog can't remember, but she'll never forget. And that's how I feel about the alcoholism. I can't remember exact things that happened, but I'll never forget how frightened I was. I never forget how lost I was. I never forget how, like, I was like, this is life. This is me. I'm broken. I will never be able to not do this. I don't want to stop drinking because there's nothing wrong. It's not the drinking's not the problem. There's nothing wrong with the drinking. It's me. I am broken on the insides. And I did. This is kind of where the book comes in. I did everything I could externally to try and make myself better, in inverted commas. That's when I started running. And I started running because the doctor said, oh, maybe you should start running because you're not getting any exercise. It's really good for your mental health. And we see so much stuff like, go outside, climb up a mountain, get some fresh air, go for a forest walk, hug a tree. You'll feel better. You will feel better, but it's not going to save you. And I think they push this as it's going to save you. And they like to get people in the media to go, oh, running saves me from depression. Oh, walking up Kilimanjaro has saved me from being anxious. But that's bullshit because it doesn't. And I say this in the book, and we talked about this earlier, it is therapeutic. It is not therapy. And it won't cure you because you have to work on that yourself. So I started running and I did London Marathon and I did all this other stuff. And before London Marathon, I stopped drinking for like 40 days, like some sort of fucking Noah of the marathon. But the not drinking was harder than training. And I remember like marking off the days I wasn't having a drink. And of course, when I'd done the marathon, what did I do the minute I crossed the line?
Reward.
We go straight down a pub. We get absolutely shit-faced with our big medal. In fact, the medal gets you money off in the pub if you show it to the man.
Yeah.
So that escalated the running. It went from running marathons to running ultra marathons, and it went from doing a few to doing fucking loads. And it became like another form of self-harm because I was like, this isn't working. So I should just do more of it. And I think with addicts or people that suffer with addictive issues or people that have fallen into addiction, however you want to frame it, that I'll just do some more to make it work. It's a really common theme. You're not replacing one addiction with another. That winds me right up.
Yeah.
But it's a common theme of, well, if a little bit of shampoo's not working, I'll put the whole tub of shampoo on. But it's
Do you,
like,
do you think
how it
that's
works.
the all or nothing mentality a lot of us have? Because with
Yeah.
my drinking, it was I'm gonna really go for it tonight. And you know what I said earlier about finding people in the pub to drink with because I couldn't stay at home because it kind of forced me into thinking about things. And immediately I was putting my fingers in my ears and going, I can't deal with it. Let's go to the pub. It ended up actually the opposite of me going home, but getting obliterated indoors immediately. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I used to go in, and before I'd even put the shopping bag, I would get the half a bottle of wine out of the fridge and neck it and then unload the shopping,
This is
you
a
know.
classic though, right? There's always half a bottle of wine in the fridge because that proves you've not got a problem.
Well, yeah, but that was after 4 bottles of wine and I've passed out.
Yeah, but I used to keep half a bottle of wine in the fridge. In the last stages of addiction, I'd keep half a bottle of wine in the fridge to prove I
Yeah.
wasn't an addict. Because
Yeah.
if I was, I'd finish it off. But the thing is, Dave, I'd already had 3 bottles.
Yeah. My
So
my weird thing was that, you know, I've often said that I would drink a litre of vodka a
ugh,
night, right?
sorry, but even for me, that's like absolutely rancid.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
mix it with anything?
A tiny bit of tonic, you know, the stronger the better. But I used to neck it. I never used to sip it and enjoy it. I used to neck it to
But that
get.
that term, enjoy it. Who enjoys the taste of vodka? Really?
Well, I
Really?
don't know many people who enjoy the taste of alcohol because, you know, you get the wine connoisseurs and that, and they spend 60, 80, 100,000 pounds on a bottle of wine. For me, that would make me potentially drink it slower, but after about 2 sips, I'd neck it the same as a £3 bottle out of Asda's. Do you know what I mean?
But
It
we
would,
know that this is all fucking fallacy.
yeah,
It's Emperor's New Clothes.
yeah,
It doesn't taste nice. It is poison.
yeah,
You're
it is.
drinking poison. It doesn't taste nice because you're not supposed to drink it. So what
Yeah,
we do is try and mix it with something that tastes nice. Or with the wines, we're putting grapes in, we're fermenting it to try and make it taste nice. The only wine that I ever thought tasted nice was rosé. I mean, I used to love a red because red got me pissed, and red made me not an alcoholic because red's posh. Port, I drink a lot of port because port's a classy drink, especially when you drink
oh
the whole
my
fucking
God.
bottle.
I've done a bottle before.
Yeah,
I've got some
fuck
stories of
that.
that.
Honestly, they should. That's worse, I think, than like putting someone in an electric chair. Just make them drink a whole bottle of port and then
Oh,
suffer with the hangover the next day.
and do you know what with port as well? Your breath goes on for days.
Mm.
Honestly, I was studying to be a therapist, right? And I used to go to college, and I'd only just begun my course, right? And it was the first Saturday, an all-day session at Kingston College, right? And I went out the night before, and a load of wine, went home, and all I had left was half a bottle of port. And one of the first things we had to do is stand up in the room for the people I didn't know and stand like 2 foot in front of each other and just look at each other, like to see if it made you feel uncomfortable and whatever. But there were people from the other side of the room going, "Oh my God, it's reeks of alcohol in it." It's like, oh my,
Funny, but it's like, I'll make you feel uncomfortable. I'm gonna make you feel so uncomfortable because I stink of port.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is evil stuff.
but
But
it's
going back to the
mad.
vodka, what I used to do, right, is if I'd wake up in the morning, and quite often I had a really hectic day. I used to work for myself, own my own company, and that. If the bottle was, if it had probably 2 fingers worth of vodka left, I think I wasn't too bad last night. What's the logic of that?
You are exactly like me. That's why if the half the bottle of rosé was there, I'd be like, I'm fine. Because if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't, I
they
would have drunk
forget the
that.
other three, but you know, and
Yeah.
I used to work in people's houses and see if there's a wine stopper in a bottle, right? And there'd be like 3 inches in. What's the point of that? I clean my teeth with it.
Yeah.
You know, I had this arrogant attitude of like judgment.
That's it. It's like addiction arrogance, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like it's really interesting because that I wasn't too bad last night. I lived off I wasn't too bad last night.
yeah,
And it was and it's so what's that word? It just makes you feel so it makes you so lonely, the alcoholism,
yeah,
because it's such a secret that you're like, you know, it just alienates you from everybody. and
yeah.
and and so you do get quite arrogant because you think you're special because you're like,
Mm,
I'm not an alcoholic. Like I was like, I never drank in the mornings, unless I had to go and do something social. So then I'd finish off that half bottle of rosé, but I'd be like, it's only half bottle of rosé, so it's not really anything. So there's 12% in that, and that much like it's just like mouthwash. It's like a banana. Like it's like whatever. Like I would find these ways of like making it all seem okay. And with the running, I was like, I got into ultra marathons and trail running is different to road running. Road running is about speed and getting there quickly. And you've all seen London Marathon, you know what that's like. But even on London Marathon, it runs past 2 pubs. They will hand you beer. And I drunk every marathon I've done. I've had a drink during the marathon. You just grab it, drink it, great. And on ultras, on trail runs, they had like a lot of the aid stations would have little shots of beer, because beer is a carbohydrate drink. Beer is a performance drink, and it's got alcohol in it, which is a painkiller. So I was like, this is great. And there was a certain race company I used to run with where I could drink a whole pint of beer at mile 22 and then crack on.
Wow.
And it was great because it was like perfect. It's the perfect drink. And I'd take sports wine in my bag on ultra marathons and drink it halfway through. I'd go and like get to the start line of these marathons or these ultras the night before and go and be social with my running friends, like dotting round pubs. I remember before my first 100-miler, I drank 2 bottles of red wine that night before. Tried to have sex with somebody that I didn't know very well. Then went to the start line of, and I'll say this again, a 100-mile ultra marathon, and ran it and finished it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with me. I'm just being social. It's just how I am. I'm really rock and roll. It's just what I do. But
Well,
there was
it's
something
almost like
deeply
as
wrong
well
with
that
me.
I can run 100 miles after a couple of bottles of wine, and it justifies that it's okay. You're all right,
Yeah.
'Cause
It's just
I
how I
did the
am.
London Brighton bike ride. I was still in the pub 4 o'clock in the morning, and we were meeting at 6:30. And I was so drunk still that I was having my head down, pedaling, like thinking, what the hell am I doing? Looked up and everyone had stopped. And I slammed my brakes on and went over the handlebars
Oh my God.
of the bike, and I was still drunk at the end of it. That's how bad it was for me. But it was like, when I finished it, it was like, I can even do that after an
Did
all-night
anyone ever say
session.
anything to you?
Eventually, but that's what encouraged me to start drinking indoors, because I felt such shame from it, because they said to me, "You're an alcoholic, Dave, because you're always pissed."
Oh, it's like, fuck, I've been found out.
It was like, oh, I've been caught out now. Um, I thought I held myself together, and I don't know how I thought that, because I would go in the pub at midday when the bolt come down, and then I was booted out when the bolt went up at 11 o'clock that night. And there were different people in different shifts that would come in. There was the hardcore middayers where the hot potatoes on the bar and the peanuts covered in piss. And then there was the families in the afternoon, and then the roast dinners would come out. And then there was the stragglers, and I would see the whole lot coming. I was still there at the end of it. So no wonder I was caught out. But at the time, I thought I was holding it all together, but I probably drank 16 pints. And I
But
used
that's
to
the
drink.
thing, isn't it? You don't think, oh, fuck, I've been in here for 12 hours. You think, do you know what? I've really held it together today.
Yeah, yeah. But if I'd probably seen a video of myself, it'd have been a car crash.
Yeah.
But you talk about your depression and severe mental health. Like, was that when you was running, or was that before?
So it started when I was probably, it definitely stemmed from like that, the school stuff, like
Yeah,
being bullied, being told you're not good enough, my dad abandoning me. It's textbook stuff, really.
yeah,
And but when I was at university, when I first got to university in like the second year, I tried to kill myself. And it wasn't a very good attempt. It was one of those attempts, a drunken attempt, where it's like, I'm going to slash my wrist, and I did it the wrong
yeah,
way.
yeah.
My friend found me at home, and like it was a bad, and like it was, I was conscious, and she took me to the doctor, and the doctor was like, what have you done? And I was like, I'm really unhappy. And because I was, and they were like, right, well, we're going to give you some drugs, and you're going to go see the doctor. And I went to see the university doctor. It was the naughties. It was Goldsmiths University. They had bigger fish to fry than me. And depression wasn't a thing. It just wasn't a thing. And I just was like, I'm deeply sad and I feel very uncomfortable in my own skin. And she went, do you want to talk about your dad? And I went, no. And I just left, and that was it. And that was it. And then I don't really remember. I just drank because I was like, I feel all right when I'm pissed, because I don't feel anything. I feel grey when I'm pissed, and feeling grey and being miserable and people like me because I had this like funny goth shtick going on. Like I was like darkly funny. but I was in such pain, but I could make it funny. So people liked it. And I was like, people like me. So I did that for a long time. And then I was like, if I can, and I kept thinking, if I can do this thing, I'll be happy. If I can work in the music industry, I'll be happy. If I can get a boyfriend, I'll be happy. If I can do this, lose £3, I'll be happy. If I can live here. And I kept doing things to try and make me happy. And then when they didn't, I'd try and do something else. But the whole time that I was trying to make myself happy, I was drinking. Because I was like, I was so frightened of looking at what the thoughts that were going on inside me and realizing, I think it's realizing that I would know that none of this shit was going to make me happy. I needed to believe in myself and be kind to myself. And I didn't know how to do that. And I just wanted to be normal. So I was trying my hardest to do everything out externally to be normal. But if you're not like, I read a lot of books about ACT therapy. Like I think I had ACT when I hit my rock bottom. That's what happened. I went to see a psychiatrist and we talked a lot about ACT. And there's that thing about acceptance. I wasn't accepting anything. I wasn't accepting how hurt I was. I wasn't accepting that maybe I had some thoughts about myself that weren't actually true. I wasn't accepting any of it because I didn't know, because it was year 2000, man. And so yeah, when I got to start doing the running, I thought if I was good at it, or if I did more, or if I did like big mega stuff, it would make people think I was great. But people can think what the fuck they want about you, Dave. If you hate yourself, it does not matter.
Yeah.
And I started to do things like run across frozen lakes in Mongolia, run across deserts, run across like jungles, like doing world first expeditions. But the whole time I was thinking, when am I going to get my next drink? And fucking, I'm rubbish at this. And oh, I feel so awful and so tired and so rubbish. I'm going to pretend it's all okay. I'm going to put it on social media that everything's all right because people want me to be this adventurer. Like they wanted me to be the music industry person. People pleasing, telling people things that weren't true because you wanted them to be true, a complete lack of acceptance that it was the alcohol that was fueling this mental health fire. And I've been sober, I'm right at the beginning. Someone said to me recently, yeah, but you're at the beginning of your sober journey in quite a mean way. And I was like, all right, like I'm doing my best. It's been like, it'll be 3 years in June. And I'm like, and I'm still not depressed. I still have depression. I still sometimes get anxious and I still sometimes get very, very fucking sad. But nowhere near as bad as I did when I was drinking. And I think one of the things that this country does not do when people say, I feel depressed, is ask, how much do you drink? Honestly,
100%.
It's bizarre.
It's a joke.
It's not like they do. I see a lot of reduce your alcohol intake, cancel your fucking alcohol intake.
Yeah.
You're poisoning yourself.
I've quite often spoken about my little bout that I had in Eastbourne, that I'd gone to the doctors. I was really depressed. But I mean, if I'm drinking 3-4 bottles of wine a night, eating badly, making poor food choices, not really exercising, not sleeping properly, my cholesterol was sky high, everything was wrong with me. I was a ticking time bomb, right? And I bowl into the doctor's office, sat down, looking ill, and say, I'm depressed. You would think common sense would go, how much are you drinking? Because I looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
He said, let's start you on some antidepressants.
Let's whack some citalopram down you, something else, just to put something else in your body that shouldn't be.
But what happened after that, Allie, was after 3-4 months, I was still drinking the same and I was still depressed. So I went back, and a different doctor, because you never see, well, you can't even get an appointment these days, said to me, okay, we'll up your dose then. I was in there 2 minutes, right? And I come out with this new prescription. 3 days later, I was in Eastbourne after a big argument indoors, sitting there on the beach with a bottle of vodka, thinking I'd rather die, right? Because I went psychotic. So there was no conversation at all about lifestyle, not even to do with my diet or anything. It was purely chuck you on antidepressants.
I can tell you now, right, that if I ate McDonald's for a week or any sort of real processed food, anything that comes out of a packet for a week, I'd feel depressed.
Yeah.
That's all it would take.
Yeah.
alcohol or anything else, or the sadness of what's going on in the fucking Gaza.
Yeah.
That it's just, if I just ate that, I'd feel depressed. So like the fact they don't even ask
Mm.
you with the alcohol, and the fact that they say to you, just reduce it, be responsible. It's like, take it out completely and see what happens. Like,
Yeah.
and if you can't take it out completely, have a conversation with someone that will help you to take it out completely,
Yeah.
because it's that I can't take it out completely thing, isn't it?
But the
It's
other thing
a
is as well, Ali, is that they've got no referrals anywhere. That, you know, if they even say start reducing and go to AA, there's a million things you can do now to support you with stopping drinking. But it's like a non-conversation,
it's a
something really,
non-versation.
a
That's what it is.
non-versation.
Yeah.
And things have got to change, honestly, because there's more and more people going down this rabbit hole. And you know, I mean, I had a test done, and it proved that I'm um very, very low on serotonin and vitamin D. Right. So they basically said to me, tongue in cheek, basically you're a miserable git, you know. And I agreed, because I have to work hard here, Ali. You know, I have to work hard at my mood. And even in the last few days, I've been really low. Um, and whatever I do, I can't seem to shift it. Like today, the sky's blue, right? After days of,
Same.
yeah. And that already brightens my day a little bit, because I hate the winter. I hate the dark evenings. I don't like rain and whatnot. I'm a summer lad. Do you know what I mean? Wake up in the morning, open the back doors up, check my tomato plants. Hey, I'm going old.
But if you're low on vitamin D, that's the vitamin D is coming out of the sky. So of
Yeah,
course you're going to be
exactly.
magnetized towards it.
Yeah, and I try the sprays and that, but it's not the same as opening up the curtains and looking at a blue sky, because for me that immediately cheers me up. You know, so I have to work hard at it. But I think things need to change. But I'd love to ask you as well. So before you started running, was you ever a runner?
No,
So where did
don't
that
be
idea come
silly.
from then? Oh, I
Don't be
might
a
start
don't be a silly sausage.
run to the pub probably.
No. When I was at school, because I wasn't very liked, I didn't do any exercise. So I would go and like, at PE, we would go out and like I was never picked for any team. So they were like, in those days, and I think you can probably understand this, if you weren't good at something, they just didn't let you do it. So they were like,
Yeah,
oh, you're not very good at PE. Fuck off to the library then. Go and play the
yeah,
cornet. And it's like,
yeah,
hang on a minute. And that's why I'm shit at maths, because I was really bad at maths. And they're like, if you're not very good at maths, go and do English. You're good at English. Go and do that. And it's
yeah,
like, what? Like, surely you should have encouraged this.
yeah.
But they didn't. And so I didn't do any exercise from the age of any at all, from the age of like 16 to the age of probably 27.
Mm,
Nothing. The only exercise I did was walking to the pub. Exercises for bozos. And a doctor said to me, like, this was another trip to the doctor. I was like, I don't feel well. Please give me some drugs, because I'd realised that drugs were a thing. Drugs I could get over the counter. And he was like, do you do any exercise? I was like, no. He's like, maybe try go for a run or something, or go for a walk. And I remember I lived in Whitechapel in this shitty flat above a bookshop, with my then husband. And I was like, I'm just gonna just put my trainers on and go for a run. And I ran from my house in Whitechapel to Tower Bridge, which was a mile. And I thought I was going to die. Right. But I didn't want to kill myself. So I didn't think I'm going to make myself die. I thought, bloody hell, this is hard work. But I was concentrating on not tripping over, trying to breathe through the 60 fags a day I was smoking. And when I got back to the house, I was like, oh my God, like I've just run. I didn't know how far I'd run, but on reflection, it was about 2 miles. So it's quite a long way.
that is a long way.
I know. And it took me like 45 minutes and I'd walked a bit of it, but it didn't matter. I was like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Because literally, I'd had a little blood transfusion and I was like, I feel amazing. And then
Yeah.
it wore off. After like 15 minutes, it was gone. And I started doing that every now and again because I liked the feeling of it. And then I remember my mum got quite ill. She got breast cancer. And when I was 30, and I'd always wanted to do London Marathon, because you just see it when you're in London and you're like, oh, I'd love to do that. But it seems like such a far away thing. And I think my brain was like trying to find ways to make me realize what the fuck was going on. And I was like, well, if I do the marathon, I'll train for the marathon. I won't drink, because I was trying to convince myself I could take it or leave it with drink a lot of the time. Like I knew there was a problem. Do you think you knew there was a problem? for a long time, deep down.
Not kind of very deep down, but I didn't care because I didn't want to give up.
Yeah, same. Like I didn't want to be boring and I didn't want to miss out. And I was like, I'll be boring and miss out and I won't have a social life. And my whole like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, but I was like, well, if I do London Marathon, then I'll have to stop drinking because you can't drink and run, right? You can't be drinking because you're going to be really fit, like super, super elite fit to do London Marathon. So I did. And I didn't drink and I didn't smoke for 40 days. And I did it for charity because my mum had breast cancer. So I was like, I'm going to raise money for charity. Aren't I an amazing person? This will make me feel better. Didn't make me feel better because I got injured. And I was like, oh, I'm going to, I'll do it in under 4 hours because I'd read in Run as well that was good. And when I did finish it, I did it in 4 hours and 3 minutes. And so for the joy of finishing it, and there was a joy, that was probably the first time in my adult life I felt proud of myself. But for about 90 seconds, and then in came, but you didn't do it in under 4 hours.
There's self-criticism.
But you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing because that's what made me go and do it again. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. And it started to become quite obvious to me that the only time I didn't think about me being a piece of shit or or feel depressed was when I was running. Yeah. In the act of running, I didn't feel as bad. I didn't feel amazing, but I didn't feel as bad. When I stopped running, it would be great for 20 minutes, a bit like booze. Nowadays, I look at the booze, I'm like, I think that the first drink, the first 20 minutes was the thing that got me because I was like, I feel amazing. I feel great. After that, I didn't feel great at all. I felt like shit, but I kept going to try and get that greatness back.
Yeah, chasing the dragon, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened with the running, but not in an addiction way. And that annoys me because because the addiction ran alongside the running. The running was really, really hard work. I had to focus on it. I had to make time for it. It hurts. It's tiring. When it's raining, it's shit. Even now, I've got to go for a session after this. Woke up this morning, I was like, oh, fuck that. Jesus Christ, I really don't want to go.
And the sky's blue as well. So
I know, but then I'm sat here looking at the sky and talking to you and thinking, do you know what? I owe running. I love running. I've got a couple of big races this year that involve the Lake District, mountains, all this stuff. You want to have the best time you can. Go out there, be grateful. I'm not even going to listen to my music today because the sky's blue and it's beautiful and I'll probably see some kites. What's not to love? So this morning I woke up, I was like, fuck this. Now I'm like, great, I can't wait to go out. But it's not the same as like, it's not an addiction. Like,
yeah.
If I don't think I'm going to die if I don't go running, whereas I thought I would die if I didn't drink.
No, I really get that. This might be controversial, but hey, one of the biggest things that I realized in myself that really helped me with moving forward was to acknowledge, for me personally, there was nothing that would beat me getting pissed, right? And that sounds controversial, but it's based on my own life experiences. Because when I used to get home, I would put Pink Floyd on, full blast, same old stuff, comfortably numb, which I hooked into. Oh yeah, I'm comfortably numb from all this stuff, and get more and more drunk. And I always used to describe it as this like big sort of cocoon thing that I'll get into, and the more drunk, the more the door would shut, and then it would finally click shut, and I was in this velvet room with light strobe lights, and everything was like hippie dippy stuff. And that, it was this narrative I told myself, but a lot of the time I was in hell, so I created this fake narrative of, I need to slip away into my little cocoon of strobe lights and music and be away from all this shit. And I realized that once I accepted that there was nothing quite like that, it really helped me to move on because I wasn't comparing anything. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm now doing this, I'm climbing that mountain to Nepal and that makes me feel as good as when I was there. It's a completely different thing.
Do you know what's interesting, right? I totally get that. And I used to call it the cave. And I used to roll the boulder back in front of the cave.
That's it.
Cave, and it's the cave when no one else comes. That cave. I have a dog now. Her name's Pickle. She is the love of my life, right?
Oh my God.
Now, I feel like that with Pickle. So when I was drinking, the worst thing I could imagine was being at home on my own in my living room on a Friday night. Fuck that. That is like fear 101. honestly, chuck me in a jungle with a load of snakes. I'd prefer that. I can't be on my own on Friday night. Like the FOMO, the thought of having to be with my own thoughts, like too much. Like, now I can't imagine being anywhere else with my dog. So that cave thing, I do actually still get it. And I get that high of like happiness, comfort, calm with the dog. Like whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because at the end of the day, the dog is finite. Like the dog has a finite span of life. But I get it with her, and it gives me such joy. And I don't think the booze ever gave me joy, but it gave me comfort and it made me feel safe. And the dog gives me comfort and makes me feel safe. So it's like I have that with her. And I know that, and I get annoyed if people like, oh, do you want to come to this film thing? Do you want to come like tomorrow night? I've got to go out to tonight. I've got to go to a fucking film showing at a cafe in the bloody Ambleside. And I'm like, oh, like it's gonna be great. It's an adventure film. It's a guy that's really cool. But I'm like, I'd rather be at home with my dog.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what
100%.
the odd thing is? I believe in the universe quite a lot, and like this time last week, I don't think we even knew each other. That's the weird thing, right? Because someone sent me your
Who
woman's
sent
hour.
you?
Who?
I demand to know, Dave.
Confidentiality. But someone does a bit of work with me, you know, and I saw it, and immediately I liked who you are and what you represent, you know, and I reached out to you, didn't I?
Yeah.
But quite often, like I've mentioned it on podcasting in my book, that I feel like my mum died in 2018. And I've felt her presence with me. I've felt like she's helped me stop drinking and remain non-drinker, right? But do you know the weird thing is, what she used to call me growing up was Pickle.
Shut up.
Absolutely, honestly, she'd say, "Okay, Pickle." So it's just
say to my dog all the time.
Weird that your dog's called Pickle. Anyway, that's by the by. That just threw me then. When you said my dog Pickle, it's like, are you serious?
Yeah, my baby, the baby pie, Queen
Yeah,
P.
well, you know, my little monkey Rose, she's a bit unsettled today. And she got me up at 1:30 this morning because she wanted to go for a wee. And I was like,
no, Dave, stop it. Because Pickle woke me up at 1:45 and she never wakes me up. And I was like, what's the matter with you? And she was like, oh. Yeah. And I had to take her outside because she wanted to go for a wee. And she never does that. And I went outside and the moon was massive.
Yeah.
It was so light. And I was like, oh, this is so nice. And then I was like, oh, maybe she woke me up to come and see the moon, but she didn't. But Dave, it's weird that both our dogs woke up at like that time.
I know. We could have recorded this then.
Oh, no, we couldn't. So, I would have been in the right mood. I was like, for fuck's sake, just have a wee Pickle.
I know. So just moving on before we round this up, because I know you've got a busy day in that. With your ultra running now, like I've seen a couple of your videos on YouTube and that, and it's some of the places you've been to. Where, like when you say jungle, I mean, did you just Google where's the most difficult place for me? Like in the dunes as well. I mean, I've just come back from Gran Canaria, right? And I walked up a big dune and that was hard enough. But
so when I got involved with running's quite a community-based thing. And I got involved with this community called Bad Boy Running, who had a podcast. And like, I was like, I like these guys. Do you know why I like them? Because they drink and they go running. They meet in the pub, they go for the run, they get pissed. Perfect. And one of the guys from that group, was involved with this adventure company in the UK, and they wanted people to test these routes like in various terrible places in the world. One of them was Mongolia. That was a frozen lake in Mongolia. One of them was in Namibia, which was 135 miles across the desert in Namibia. And one of them was in Panama. And the Panama one was really, really quite hectic. It was like, let's cross the country in the jungle on foot, which is not cool. And I just was like, at the time, I was so like lost that I just would say yes to anything. So I said yes, because I was like, okay. Because I think I was like, what, will this break me? Will this break me? And it didn't break me, because nothing will break me. Like I fucking proved that. Like literally, I don't think there's anything that could break me. The only thing that could break me would be the dog being taken. But even then, I know that there's ways of coping with stuff like that. But I was putting myself in situations that were dangerous and hard and horrible because I wanted to see. I think I wanted to break. I think I wanted to like smash into a million bits so I could put myself back together again.
Rebuild yourself.
But I didn't smash into a million bits. And I didn't smash into a million bits till a lot further down the line. And Yeah, the stuff that I did. And those videos are actually quite interesting because I was fucked in all of them. Like I was mentally ill. I was an alcoholic. Like I'm about to go on a speaking tour, plug. So I'm going to do a speaking tour in May and June. So I'm having to go through these videos because I'm going to use some of them on the screen. And I started watching yesterday and I got too upset. I just started to cry. I was like, I can't watch it because I know how much pain I was in. I was
Yeah.
presenting as this adventurer and presenting as, hey guys, I'm in Namibia. Look at this big Jew. Hey guys, I'm in the jungle. It's really scary. But I was like, I can see in my eyes that I am fucked. Like I'm so lost.
Yeah.
And that upsets me so much because it's such a waste. But at the time, obviously other people couldn't see that. They thought that I was being this great adventurer. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. And it's like, I said this on Women's Hour, people think that alcoholics, you can tell who they are, but you can't tell who they are because we are walking amongst everybody all the time, like normal people. We're on Instagram with 1 million followers. We're on fucking YouTube. We're presenting daytime TV shows. We're on Dancing with the Stars. We're on Pop Idol. We're everywhere. You don't fucking know. And the thing about being an alcoholic is you become a master pretender, like a master pretender, a really good liar, and extremely good manipulator, which is
Yeah.
none of those things
Absolutely.
are very like positive, but they are quite useful, especially when you put them to good use, like working in trauma or working in therapy, being able to manipulate somebody's thought process into something that's more helpful, for example, or being able to like get people, for me as a coach, being able to get people to do these extreme things that they don't think that they can do by because I know how your brain works because I've had
Yeah.
my brain try and fucking kill me. So it's you can't turn it around, but fuck me, those videos, man. They're just I thought about taking them all down and then I thought, no, you better just leave
No,
them.
no. But the other thing I would say about that is that you don't even have to be an alcoholic to be like a manipulator because, like I work with grey area drinkers, right, which is another phrase, middle lane, which could be 2 glasses a night with dinner. It could be nothing in the week and binging at the weekend. It could be not drink for a month, but then you're on it for 2 weeks after that. And I always, use an example of the mum in the playground with little Johnny, and she's got all her makeup and hair immaculate and a lovely coat and that, and saying, smiling, and hello, how are you? Yeah, I'm great. I'm amazing. But she's drunk a bottle of wine the night before. The bloke who gets in the van in the morning and, it's so many people have a problem with drinking and they don't communicate it because of shame and embarrassment, you know. And so it doesn't discriminate. And I think the more we talk about it, like this interview today, the more we're honest with it. That's why I'm brutally honest. There's no hold bar with me. Some of the things I've done in my life with it, and it's that I want to get it out there because I feel like do you know what, as well, Ali? I feel this is my purpose. I didn't know what my purpose was before.
I feel the same. I mean, I feel the same in that my purpose is to help people, but my
Yeah.
purpose is to lay here, take all my clothes off and go, look at all the things I've done and
Yeah.
I'm okay. Like, it's okay. And in fact, it's quite normal. And that's the thing about the shame, right? And I write about this in the book. There is still a shame over being addicted to a substance which is highly addictive that is pushed at us as normal. No one's ashamed of being addicted to their phone, but we all are. No one's ashamed of like fucking being addicted to chocolate or sweets or bananas or whatever the fuck it is that you can't stop doing. But alcohol, it's like you should be able to control this. And it is the only addictive substance that people ask why you're not doing it when you don't do it. You don't say, oh, why aren't you taking that line of cocaine? Why aren't you smoking that cigarette? Like, you don't do that. And so let's fucking look at it. And if we can, I want to just shake society and be like, look at what's happening.
Yeah.
You have all been fucking hoodwinked. All of you have. And I just want, anyone that's listening to this that is like, I really would like, and I'm pretty sure you get people listening to this that do want help and don't know where to go because it's difficult listening to it on the tube on their headphones, hoping that nobody can see their screen and what they're listening to because they're fucking embarrassed. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. And the best thing about like realizing that, or like reading a book about it or listening to a podcast about it, is that I'm not ashamed that I was addicted to alcohol. I'm not ashamed of it. It's a thing that happened to me. It's a circumstance. I don't even wish that it was different because I'm really glad now I have the experiences that I have so I can help other people. Like, shifting that shame is so hard. But I think podcasts like this and like having and guys like you, a fucking great example, because we're not saying to people you're defective or you're wrong or you're bad. We're saying you're fucking normal and there is
Normal.
help there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's like I'm very visual with how I, address things. And it's like we're just a load of ants that have been, as you say, hoodwinked. All of a sudden, one of us put our hand up and say, I don't want to be part of this anymore. And then hopefully the next one does, the next one, and more people are coming to me for help, going, do you know what? I'm not an alcoholic, but drinking is really beginning to affect my quality of life, or it's affecting me how I put my kid to bed, where I'm actually saying a good night story holding a glass of wine, or my sleep is terrible, or I feel really anxious in the morning, or I'm not concentrating at work how I should, and all these different things, right? And I think more and more people are identifying the fact that it is a poison and it's not serving us anymore.
And this is a question I ask, right? I always say to people, tell me 5 good things about alcohol. And they tell me the 5 good things. And I'm like, you've literally just told me the 5 worst things.
Yeah, it's so often the opposite, isn't it?
Because it doesn't serve you. In the only thing it is useful for is as an antiseptic. And even then it fucking kills everything, the good bacteria and the bad. So it's not even that useful for that. So it's like, yeah, and I just think that shame thing, people don't need to be ashamed. Like if you're listening to this and you feel shame, you don't need to be ashamed. You're normal. It's normal to be addicted to something that is addictive. Totally normal.
Yeah.
Or have a problematic relationship with something that helps you to feel better. Like, people, you would take drugs if you're depressed. Like you're just trying to feel better, and I understand that. And sometimes feeling better is a much longer and drawn out process than you think it's going to be, but it's worth it. Like look at this sounds ridiculous. Me and Dave have got great skin. Like we've got beautiful skin. My skin was a shit show when I was drinking. So it's so much money on like makeup and trying to make myself look nice. And now I'm so grateful that it just took one thing and I didn't even have to start doing something. I had to just not do something to make my skin feel like this. It's just made me feel so much more confident.
I know. Do you know what? I saw a reel on Instagram. They pop up. I don't follow this person. She was absolutely caked in Botox and lip fillers and whatnot. And she was on the reel with a glass of wine. And it's like, let's go back to basics here. Do you know what I mean? Like,
but the thing is, it's such a huge industry, isn't it? The beauty industry. They don't want you to stop drinking.
No,
because if you stop drinking, you don't need their shit.
Exactly.
You're fine. So it's like, the other thing is I really try and do because of the fact that I really try and don't do because of the fact I did it for so long to other people is the fucking judgment thing, because it's like, it's just so easy to judge people. And I think that I felt like I was judged by other people because I was judging other people.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not like that. I'm not as bad as him. I'm not as bad as her. I'm not as bad as that. And it's like, stop. Make everything neutral. Things are just behaviors and circumstances, things that happen to just circumstances. Nothing's good, nothing's bad, nothing's positive, nothing's negative. It's just a circumstance.
Yeah.
And be curious about everything. And I think that curiosity is so much a better way, especially if you're worried about how much you're drinking. Be curious about what you're doing, why you're doing it, not judgmental about it.
Yeah, 100%. I love that.
It just helps to lift it, lift the darkness out of it, because there is no, life is hard. Being a human hurts. That's what being a human is. It hurts. And it has great times and it has awful times. And fucking believe me, listener, if you stop drinking, you'll still have bad times. It won't be fucking fine wine and Belgian chocolates. Like you, Dave, if you've not had a fucking great couple of days, that's okay as well, because that's life. You can't feel joy without feeling the pain. And I just feel like there's a fear there from people. I'll never be able to do it again. And it's like, yeah, you can do it again, but maybe just don't do it today. Maybe just be curious about what happens if you don't do it today.
I love it. I love the whole curious word. And one of my favorites is explore the idea. Let's explore the idea of maybe getting your head on the pillow tonight without a drink inside you and see how you feel in the morning, and then start again tomorrow and explore that day, and that means better food choices, changing what you're doing with your life, like maybe do an evening class or just do something different that brings you joy. Find, like you found running, right? If you come around here now and your stuff and said, right, off we go then, I'd like, I've just left something in the office and I'd bolt the door.
You gotta be like, we're going for a walk, but do wear some comfortable trainers you can run in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're a
yeah.
manipulator, as we've discussed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know if you follow Richard E. Grant on Instagram, but he
Oh, he's
started
great,
running.
isn't he?
Oh my God, he started running and he wears like a polo shirt with like a little sweatshirt and he's just running along. And I'm like, see, I could do that with you, Dave. I don't even have to take for a t-shirt. I'll just take you out your
Yeah,
polo shirt and your little sweater. I'll be like, now we're going to start jogging. And you'll be like, oh,
yeah.
fuck off. And I'll be like, no, it's going to be great. We're going to have a great time.
I'll be diving in the nearest hedge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So, your book, There Is No Wall, where can people find this?
Well, you can find it on the evil that is Amazon, but
Oh, I'm on there.
you can also find it in my publishers, Vertebrate. So they're adventurebooks.com. That's their website.
Right.
Get it direct from them. I think there's a few signed copies left. And then I'm going on a tour in May and June, speaking tour of little theatres. And so I'll be selling it there. And then sometimes you can get it in bookshops. I went to Waterstones in Leeds the other day to try and find it, but they'd sold out, which was an absolute joy.
Well, I found mine in Waterstones the other day. It's only because I put it in there.
Oh, did you walk in there with some?
I had one and just put it in there and took a photograph to make me look harder than I was. You know what I mean? Because mine's just on Amazon.
But yeah, but still,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
it was in Waterstones.
It's there if people want to go and get it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and people will enjoy it. It's also on Audible. So if you don't read, because I know a lot of people have a problem with reading.
Did you record it yourself?
I did record it
Oh
myself.
my God, that is one of the hardest things I've ever done. My older,
Yeah.
I was literally come out like a zombie every day out of there. Just
yeah, it was hard, but I was like, I have to do it myself because people have asked me to do it myself.
Yeah.
I'm a podcaster. I've got a lot of I do a lot of media-y stuff, and I think people, and also the way the book's written, the only person that could have done it credit in my eyes is Olivia Colman. And I couldn't have afforded Olivia Colman.
I love Olivia Colman.
Me too, man. So I was like, I'll do it. It was really hard, but it's only 5 hours, 11 minutes long.
Mine's less than that.
Yeah. You rip through it super quick because you're like, I have to stop this. It's awful.
I don't know. I think mine's 4 hours and something. It's not a big book, but it's punchy.
I opened mine, right? I was like, okay, dedication. I was like,
yeah, that's what I was like.
It and I was just in bits.
I was like a 4-year-old.
Yeah. It was like, oh man. But once you get into it, it's all right. Yeah. But it's exhausting, isn't it? It was
I was slurring.
Exhausting.
I was slurring, like I was drunk. And he kept saying to me, my producer was like, right, let's do that again. Let's do that again. Okay. Try that again, Dave. By the end of the day, it was almost like, for fuck's sake.
Dave, do you want to go and have a little walk outside? Would you like Dave, would you like someone else to do this for you?
And what I was gutted about, it was in the middle of summer and it was about 85 degrees. And all I was in this little dingy, dark office in London somewhere thinking, I just want a bit of sun to raise my serotonin and vitamin D levels up.
Yeah, you should have said, I'm going to go do this in the park with some birds tweeting in the background.
Yeah, I know. But look, Allie,
I did mine just before I went on holiday to the Philippines. I did it the day before. So I was like, you've got to get through this to get on that flight to the Philippines. That worked.
Brilliant.
Anyway.
Well, look, I'm going to put all the details for your tours and your book in the show notes. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you today, Allie. And as I said earlier, it feels like I've known you since I've been about 4. So lovely to have you on.
It's lovely. And you're doing such a great job with this podcast. It's so great that people have somewhere to go and somewhere to listen to people that have similar experiences, because I think it's such a lonely place to be, that problematic relationship with alcohol place, whatever it is, whether you think you're an addict or not. Yeah. It's such a lonely place to be. And you don't need to be lonely because there's a whole community out there who want to listen to you. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, and well done for everything you're doing as well. And maybe one day I get to meet you. But until then,
we'll go for a run, mate.
Yeah. What? Anyway, I've got to go now.
You're breaking up. Okay, bye.
Nice to see you. Bye.